The Secret of NIMH Original Version Creepypasta. Does anyone remember the movie The Secret of NIMH? It was an animated movie by Don Bluth and based on the 1971 children's novel Mrs. Frisby and the Rats of NIMH by Robert C. O'Brien. About a mother mouse named Mrs. Frisby, which made it very different from the other children's movies released during the 80s. Still, the movie got great reception from me, although it was still outshined by Don Bluth's other classics, such as An American Tale and The Land Before Time. A few days ago, I had a conversation with my friends through Discord about some of our favorite movies, and of course, I brought up The Secret of NIMH. A wave of nostalgia hit me as I remembered watching the movie for the first time back when I was 8 or 9. Memories of scenes and characters flooded back as I remembered the joy I felt while watching the story of Mrs. Frisby unfold. It was then I decided I should watch the movie again for old time's sake. However, I didn't have the DVD of the movie I had all those years ago, as I have gotten it from Blockbusters when they were still around, and I didn't have the patience to wait for a week for another copy from Amazon or eBay. So I decided to be a bit risky and see what I could find on some torrent sites. It wasn't long until I found a platinum of torrents to choose from. As I was looking around the list, checking to see if they would work as well as not have any deadly viruses that would kill my laptop, one of the torrents caught my eye. I stopped myself scrolling down the list to read the title, and that's when my curiosity made sense. The Secret of NIMH, Original Version, 1982. My curiosity grew after I read that. I have never heard of an original version of the movie. Maybe they were referring to a first release VHS copy from 1982. I thought about that for a moment, figuring that was what the person was most likely referring to. I clicked on it to see some more info about the torrent. Maybe they would explain it a bit more in the description. Even if it was what I expected, it would be cool to watch one of the first copies of the movie made. First thing I noticed was at the date of upload. It was uploaded just yesterday. I found that a little weird, seeing as most torrents of the movie had been uploaded years ago. But I didn't mind it much. The date didn't really matter anyways. The second thing I noticed was that there was no comments, only a handful of cedars and leechers. But I figured that was because it was a recent upload. I don't remember the uploader's username, but I think it was. Although I think it was something like Banana Dude Gaming or something like that, followed by 4 random numbers. I think it was 5,066.7, but I don't know. I then looked at the description, hoping I find some answers there, only to find this. The Secret of NIMH, Original Version, Date Date February 6th. Date February 6th, 82 video format .mp4. That date couldn't be correct. The movie was released on July 2nd, not February 6th. The uploader must have gotten the release date wrong, although I can't see how looking up the release date as well as making an organized description was so hard for them to do. Maybe they were in a rush or too lazy. I really had no idea. Okay, continue. I was here now, so despite my suspicion about the authenticity of the torrent, I downloaded it, and after a few minutes, it was finished. I ran a quick virus scan of the file, and nothing harmful was detected. I grabbed myself a drink and sat back down on my chair, making myself comfortable as I started to play the movie, excited for an hour of pure nostalgia. Not to my surprise, the movie was completely normal. All the characters looked and act like how I remembered them. And the songs were still as memorable as ever. I smiled as I watched the familiar scenes of Mrs. Brisby's story play out in front of me once more. I figured that my theory about the torrent had been correct. That was until the movie reached its ending. In the actual movie, Mrs. Brisby uses the NIMH stone to rise her house from the mud and moves it to a safe spot, and all ends well. This was not the case with the version I watched. Instead, I was greeted with what I assume either a fan-made or an unreleased alternative ending. In this version, Mrs. Brisby uses the NIMH stone as usual, except no one else is there but her. Screen goes black, then the screen fades to an abandoned castle, which looked very cool in a Dawn Blue cartoon. Rain started to pour down as some black rat looks around for a moment and then sighs. A look of pure sadness plastered on his face. "They'll never find me. I should have known," the black rat said. "Do they even care? Did they even try?" "Who is they?" I said. The black rat seemed to think about it for a moment. His facial expression then quickly changed from a look of sadness to anger. It was then that the sound of thunder boomed. Yeah, if they did care, they would have found me right now. The black rat shouted, his rage over the failure of his team finally being released. It was then I started to hear a faint sound in the background. It was Alana Brisby, Mrs. Brisby's sister, softly singing Flying Dreams like a lullaby. They never cared about me. Never. Not even for a moment. The sounds of the black rats roaring and Alana Brisby's singing was now accompanied by a lone droning noise. Thunder boomed again, and different scenes from the movie, such as Mrs. Brisby seeing Mr. H's, meeting Jeremy, and stopping the tractor, flashed blurry on the screen as his roaring began getting even worse. It was then that the sound of evil laughing started becoming audible, the tone of it sounding malevolent and malicious. It took a moment for me to realize that the laughing was in Sharp Tube's voice. Wait, what? The Land Before Time was not made until 1988. The low droning started to intensify as thunder boomed once more, and the monster's giggling turned into hysterical laughter. The flashing scenes were then replaced by a transparent picture of Sharp Tooth. The camera started to zoom in on the black rat as the picture slowly started to change, becoming black and white. The smiles on Sharp Tooth's faces became a bit bigger, and his eyes became black voids. Accompanying this terrifying transition were all of these indescribable sounds that quickly began increasing in volume, overshadowing all other sounds, including Black Rat's cries, which were now practically screams. Everything was in complete chaos. It then quickly cut to the scene with a small group of birds bathing in the bird bath. I paused the movie and took a moment to collect myself. What the hell did I just see? There were so many questions running through my head. This had to be a fan-made version, made by some kind of sicko with nothing better to do. But it all seemed to be perfectly done in a darn blue style. If it was really Don Bluth that made this, I couldn't understand why he did. Considering this is supposed to be a movie for children. I know the man didn't exactly sugarcoat his stories for a younger audience, but this was really pushing it. I found myself in a dilemma: either shut off my laptop and try to forget about this, or watch the final scene of the movie. Although shutting off my laptop would seem like the better option, I knew if I did, I would just leave myself at a cliffhanger and probably go back to seeing the ending anyways. Besides, I was already this far into it. Might as well see how it all ends. I pressed the play button. The scene with the birds ended, and a shot of the black rat, still in the fetal position, came on screen. There's a sign next to him. It read, "My name is Mr. Black. I'm being haunted by something, and I can't take it anymore." It was still a bit dark out, due to the fact that it was still in the early morning. There was no music. In fact, there was no sound whatsoever. The black rat, or Mr. Black, didn't move from his position at all, making it seem as if I was just staring at a picture of him. After a moment, he started leaning to his left, and then fell on his side in an almost ragdollish way. That's when I saw why he wasn't moving. Mr. Black was nothing more than a rotten rat skeleton. Each of his bones had a tinge of light brown in them, as if he was discovered in the ground, decayed by time. The only ones I could see, however, was his skull and feet bones, or arm bones in the video. His head was the first thing to hit the ground. The force of it, which caused the side of it to shatter on impact. His red hat slipped off because of this, and laid right beside his skull. The camera focused on this as the soft sound of distant calls from Mr. Black's mother becoming audible. Her calls echoed through the wind, never to be answered, as the screen faded to black. And then the screen cuts to Mrs. Frisbee uses the NIMH stone as usual. Except everyone is there, like Justin and Mr. Aegis. Everything was normal. It's like as if none of this Mr. Black chaos have not happened. The ending was normal. Flying dreams and the end credits were normal. After the movie ended, I was so shocked on what I just saw. Who is Mr. Black? I said, and who is they? Is it Jonathan Brisby's friends or Jenna's army? By the way, Jonathan Brisby is Mrs. Brisby's husband, and he died by dragging the cat. But who the heck is Mr. Black? Was he a scrapped character by Don Bluth? I know for a fact that Mr. Black is not in the free books. Now I have a question for you guys. Who is Mr. Black?